Welcome to Win Talk Radio, where you will learn how to talk truth and take action. Hosted by WIN, Women Impacting the Nation. Join your hosts, Sue Trombino, founder and president of WIN, Debbie Healy, public policy advisor for Faith, Family, and Freedom, Cari Campos, co-founder of Self-Evident Ministry, and Janique Stewart, founder of Love Protects Ministry and speaker with Life Training Institute. For more information about Win Talk Radio, go to our website at womenimpactingthenation.org. Because remember, when we show up, we win. Well, welcome to another Win Talk Radio podcast that we're having, and we are on the road here with Liberty in our bus, and we happen to be in Statesboro, Georgia, and we are continuing with our Watchman series, and we are very, very excited today to continue our Watchman series with Pastor Wayne Miracle. What a neat name, Wayne Miracle.
Yeah. Pastor Miracle. That's got a great reach to it.
I'm here with one of our co-hosts, Debbie Healy, and we're just really, really excited to have you with us, Pastor Miracle. And can I call you Pastor Wayne?
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
Pastor Wayne Miracle. That's really neat. I'm telling Mary that. And just to say, we have an incredible. Usually we have Jerry and Mike behind the scenes doing all of our taping, but today we have an amazing gal, Mary, who has she's waving her hands here, but she has put together this really 3-day tour that we have here in Statesboro with Christian Liberty Network, and we're really, really excited. But we want everybody that's listening to us that if you're in Georgia and Statesboro, we have a couple of pastors that we're talking to, and you need to come to their church because they are true watchmen. And we're moving on to another series of our Watchman series, and so we just are so grateful to meet you, Pastor Wayne, and thank you for not only coming here today, but also I know we're going to be in your church.
Yes.
And but just tell us a little bit about yourself and where you came from, and just how are you really a true watchman pastor? Because there are a lot of pastors that are not true watchmen. They don't preach the whole counsel of God. And I was listening to some of your sermons, and you really are a true watchman. So I want to thank you for that. And your family is very blessed to have you as the head of their household to be a true watchman, because we need more pastors like you. But so tell us, where are you from? And
well, I'm from Monroe, Michigan. My folks moved there back after World War II because of economic situations in East Tennessee, and all of my family just about worked for Ford Motor Company, and that was really a big deal for them at that particular time in their life, and that's where I was born. And I was not raised in a Christian home per se. We held to Christian values. I say many times in my testimony that my home was more of a Christian home than a lot of so-called Christian homes today. But we didn't go to church. Very, very few times do we go to church. But there was a Christian influence there. And then when I was 18 years old, I just graduated from high school. My mother became very interested in church. One of my sisters had made a profession of faith, and she wanted to get in church. So she started looking around in our town to find a church, and she found this church, and she started going there. And I was not really all that encouraged to go because my dad, I took my cues from him, and he wasn't too big into it. And so, got to do the masculine, manly thing, and so I wasn't too interested until she said, "The pastor has a house full of pretty daughters." Well, I had just graduated from high school, and I wasn't around any girls anymore. So I said, you know what, I think I'll go.
Gee, Mom.
That's right. And so sure enough, went there and met all of his daughters. And of course, I fell in love with his eldest daughter.
Oh.
And so anyway, in November of 77, I gave my life to Christ. And he revolutionized me. It wasn't just a religious thing, wasn't just a church thing. No, there was something regenerative that took place in my heart and life. And God just began to work in me. And then it wasn't too long afterward that I I always have loved education. I've always loved learning and knowing and all those kind of things. So I wanted to know more. And at the same time, I felt God was leading me into ministry, and I couldn't get my head around that one, you know. And so, you know, my father-in-law, who became my father-in-law, he told me about that, you know, our denomination had a seminary. And so this is way beyond me. I just thought that my life would exist to work at Ford Motor Company, and that was all that I really cared about, really, to be honest with you. And so God led me to go to seminary there, and then that's when my whole life really changed. I mean, the Lord changed my life when He saved me in '77, but when I went to seminary, it was an eye-opener to a whole new world that I had never thought about before. And that's where I was called in the ministry before that. I started preaching before that, but after I went to seminary, I started pastoring.
Oh, wow. And then you married?
Yes. Well, very shortly after we met, about a year after we met in 1978, Debbie and I were married. And so we've been married for 44 years this year.
Oh, wow. And you have how many children?
We don't have any children.
You have children? Okay.
But we've been blessed with 2 dogs.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I mean, can you bring your dogs to church?
Well, we possibly
everybody knows.
could.
Okay, everybody knows I love animals. So it's like, bring your dogs. So what have you noticed? I mean, since you've become a pastor, obviously things have changed in the church.
Yes.
And what kind of things have you seen that have really changed in the church? Because obviously, I think we're in the mess that we're in today. Now, again, I'm not theologically trained.
Right.
I'm a mom. I'm a wife. Whatever. But what I just noticed that we've so dumbed down the gospel.
Yes.
Do you find that as a pastor? Do you think? I mean, what are your thoughts on all that?
Oh yeah, I think that's absolutely evident. And in my personal opinion, and from my studies, it's all because of back starting in 1952, if I remember correctly, Darren McGavin wrote a book on church growth. And this was something, if you go back and you study church history, this was something that there was never mentioned anything about this. Then after his book came out, there became the church growth movement. Now, let me just explain. All of us pastors, we want to see more people come to know Jesus Christ as their Savior. All pastors, I would say, if they're any good, they want their churches to grow. But we want them to grow through conversion and through regeneration. And what we've seen happen through the years, and it's getting worse as time goes on, is that it's not so much we want you to come to church and we want you to be saved and baptized and discipled and become a leader, following 2 Timothy 2:2. It's none of those things. We just want you to come in and be a part of our church. Mm-hmm. And so we're training our culture to be religious. And I actually spoke on that this morning. I touched on it this morning, that we want you to be religious on Sunday. Mm-hmm. What you are Monday through Saturday, that's your business. Mm-hmm. But just come here on Sunday, and if you can smile and fill up a pew or a seat or whatever the case is, we're happy with that. So that's exactly the problem. I see that is we have dumbed down the gospel. A lot of churches are not even preaching the gospel. Mm-hmm. I'm ashamed to say, in my opinion, that there's a lot of pastors who could not tell you the gospel. Mm-hmm. They can maybe tell you parts of the gospel, but they can't tell you the full gospel. And so because of that, we're in the fix that we're in. So it's essential. If we want to see our country turn around for God, it is essential that there has to be, first of all, a turnaround in the pastorate, yes, among pastors, to get back to the Word of God and preaching the Word of God.
Yes. It's 2 things that you just said. I was going to say, there was just about a couple years ago in Orlando. It was, I won't mention the church or anything like that, but there was a very big church, and they had a group, it was a conference for pastors. It was about 800 pastors. And one of my really good friends, who was an intercessor, a worldwide intercessor, she's amazing. She was there praying for, during the whole conference. And there was a pastor that at the end of the conference stood up in front of all 800 pastors and said, I have to profess to you today that I have been preaching for 30 years, and this is the first weekend that I've actually understood the gospel.
Wow.
Yep.
I mean, it was, can you imagine? And so I had the privilege of, I was working with FRC or helping FRC, sitting down with a lot of pastors, and I was stunned at how many pastors, I hate to say it, but they shouldn't be behind that pulpit. They weren't preaching the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. They were kind of compartmentalizing, their faith really. And I had gone to, I think I was, I think we were talking before about, I'm a centurion, which I went to the Chuck Colson Centurion program, which I just love because it's all about truth.
Yes. And
everybody has a worldview. It's either biblical or pagan.
That's right. Absolutely.
And the problem is the Christian has compartmentalized their biblical worldview. Absolutely. And so it's just so refreshing and to see pastors like you. But I think God is, again, we talked about this earlier, that God is really separating the wheat from the chaff, the sheep and the goat, and He's exposing, right? Because God is not a God of numbers.
That's right.
Gideon wanted 33,000, he got a whopping 300.
That's right.
So I think that, but it's just amazing how we've dumbed down not only the gospel, but I think in the schools, we're not teaching, we're educating. We talk truth and we take action here at WIN. And so we're not afraid to talk about the tough subjects because we want to get back to really having a conversation, and relearn it and teachable, from our pastors. But I think sometimes Deb and I were talking about it earlier today that we have to know. We have to be accountable for ourselves. We can't wait for the pastor to tell us what to do. We have to be accountable because, and I really want Debbie to kind of tell this story quickly and see what you think about this. I was stunned when she told me this today, but we're talking about here, we go to church, we're listening to the pastor, we read, we're following it. You're supposed to have your Bible. Some people have their phones now, but reading, along with the pastors. So to make sure that the pastor, do you even know that the pastor's teaching the truth?
Yes.
The whole truth and nothing but the truth? Or does he just sound good?
That's right.
Right? Because we sit there and we think, oh, he sounds good, so, oh yeah, I'm going to do that. Not realizing that they're taking, money's the root of all evil. No, it's the love of money that's the root of all evil.
Right.
But Deb, tell, Pastor Wayne, what that story.
Well, this was in a church that I was in my home city, and I had been having a little inkling that maybe this is not really where I need to be. That maybe we're not really walking in the gospel at this church. But it was very hard. It was a struggle because I have fellowship with my prayer group, and I just kept saying, no, I'm going to stay. Well, about 3 weeks ago, I was in church, and our pastor, who I like, was reading the gospel, and he got to the point, and I'm following in my Bible, and he's reading, and it had a comma, and the next thing it said, I'm just going to paraphrase this, and I'm sorry I can't even remember what gospel because I was just so blown away. That it had a comma, and the next thing it was homosexuality is an abomination. He didn't read that. He didn't read that part.
Yes.
And I'm looking, and he stopped, and I looked up and I was like, did anybody else catch that? And I just thought, there's my son. There it is. Yeah. And you talked about people coming to church and they're in the pulpit, they hear you preach an hour a week. Well, and then everybody gets up and goes out. And from the rest of the day, the Sunday until the next Sunday, all they hear is Satan, Satan, Satan.
That's right.
How are we going to win if we don't give our congregants that armor to go out there and to stand? And he's given us the armor.
Well, I think it goes back to what Ms. Sue just said. And I think about our children. Our children are really up against it because when I was in school, they were still teaching the truth.
Absolutely.
But see, we have revisionists that are ruining our country. And then on top of that, we have the school systems that have all changed. And then we have the media who's only telling what they want to say. And then when they go to their church, it's very likely that they're not hearing the whole gospel of God. And so our children are really up against it. And so what we try to do at our church is that we mention these things and try to help our young people to understand what the truth of God is. We try to counteract what they find in the culture, and what we call ourselves as churches, we try to be counter-cultural.
Oh, that's awesome. And again, we talked about this earlier, but I'm sure you hear, oh, but we shouldn't be involved in politics, because that's church and state. What do you say to that when people say that?
Well, this is a new concept because it's not the way it's been. My friend, he is over what he calls the sermon index, and it's a database of every sermon that he can find. And I don't know how far back he goes, but he goes back at least to the 15th century. And he shows me all the time, look at these preachers, especially during the Revolutionary period, and how that they stood in their pulpits and they preached against a particular politician and what he was promoting. And we've gone away from that because I'm afraid to say that there's so many of us that lack the backbone to stand up and tell the truth.
Yeah, and well, I'm just so glad that you are a pastor that's preaching the whole truth, because in that separation of church and state, nowhere in the Constitution does it say that.
That's right.
And so
Absolutely.
again, they have. If you don't know your history, if you don't know where you came from, you're not going to know where you're going. And so, I just thank you for being a pastor who's standing. And can you tell our audience tell us the name of your church and then your website so that they can come in, or your church name?
Our church is New Life Fellowship Free Will Baptist Church, and our website is nlffwbc.org.
That's good.
And we're on Highway 80, and we would love to have anybody anytime.
And is it in Statesboro itself?
It's in Statesboro. That's right.
Okay. Well, we have been so blessed to have our pastors in our continued Watchman series, because we want you to know that there are watchmen out there. And if you're going to a church that is not really preaching the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, I hate to say that, but like Deb said, it's hard because you have friends there and everything, but you really need to go away. I mean, you need to get out, and you need to tell your pastor why. And because maybe you're just planting a seed for them and maybe helping them. And but we just thank you all for, again, joining us with Pastor Wayne, and we hope that you come and check us out at womenimpactingthenation.org, or you can go to our email, which is win@womenimpactingthenation.org. And we also have a phone number, which is 844-946-8255. So if you have any questions, you don't agree with us, we want to hear all different sides, because we want to be educated, we want to be learned and teachable. And so we want to be able to have that conversation, kind of how that they used to have that Lincoln debate, really calm, so we can think, because we have become a nation of non-thinkers. And so we just really want you to join us, and just come check us out. Go on to our YouTube, Rumble, all that kind of stuff. But remember, we talk truth and we take action. And just always remember, when we show up, we win. So come and join us, and we thank you again, and may God bless all of you.
Here at Win Talk Radio, as Judeo-Christians in America, we have three choices. We can either fight, we can support the fighters, or we can do nothing. We encourage you all, take a stand today.
Thank you for joining us at Win Talk Radio. For more information, contact us at womenimpactingthenation.org for questions, suggestions, or for more information, call us at 844-946-8255. Be sure to tune in next week for another episode of Win Talk Radio. And remember, when we show up, we win.